You staying home tonight?
I hadn't planned on it, no.
Plan on it.
Minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery.
You're gonna die.
I'm Raymond Arroyo.
We'll see you next time.
All right, everyone, we're back. We're back on the show. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Kyle's in the closet. Brittany's here. And we are here with Austin.
How's it going?
How do you pronounce your last name? Because I'm in...
Yeah,
Wyble. Wyble, okay. I'm always
good.
insecure about last names. Austin agreed to come on and have a silly old time with us, but I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time because I don't know if you know this, but I admire you greatly. You're kind of my hero a little bit.
Oh, wow. Prepare to be disappointed.
Well, ask me in what way? 2 ways. Oh, well, more than one way. 2 ways now. Now
I'd love to know
I've realized ways. 2 more ways just by looking at you.
Oh, 2 more ways.
Yeah.
Okay, what are the 3 ways?
The first one is your beard.
Okay, thank you.
So you can grow an actual. You're one of what percentage of men can grow like a regular beard? We should look that up, Jamie. And then, what was I gonna say? What was that? Oh, a second thing. Okay.
Oh yeah, hit me.
The other thing is that you seem like the type of person that I kind of want to be, which is you're doing a lot of different things. There's not just like one business.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different projects and stuff.
Yeah.
And have you always been that way?
No.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
I guess.
What's your origin story? I asked people like, what's your like comic book 6-panel like background, superhero background, you know?
Okay, so like imagine like Slender Man but awkward, and like growing up in small.
Wait, Slender Man, like the horror thing that hides in the forest?
Yeah. So like
that's pretty awkward. That's actually horrifying.
Yeah, but it wasn't scary.
Can you pull up Slender Man?
Slenderman's not awkward. He's going at people and murdering them. He's evil.
Yeah. No, I didn't do that.
This was your This is your origin
This is my childhood.
Yeah. You killed people?
Well, I can't talk about it. Okay. So you know, super skinny, lanky kid growing up in
you
Southeast
looked like
Texas.
him. You didn't act like him.
No.
Okay.
No, just looked like him.
Okay.
Poor guy. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, I grew up nice,
Austin.
normal Catholic family, though.
Are you sure?
Just like that.
Homeschool, public school, private school?
Public school.
And then how many siblings?
2 little brothers.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then your parents, Catholic, you said?
My mom, Catholic. Dad, raised Southern Baptist, converted to Catholicism, I don't know, probably close to 20 years ago now. So
nice. And then where'd you go to college again?
Texas A&M.
Okay.
College Station.
And what'd you study?
I studied marketing.
Okay.
Which was basically like my background for I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so I might as well pick something that's very broad.
Is that so? That's why you picked that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was definitely. I went for engineering. That lasted.
What kind of engineering?
I was like, what? I was like, I want to be like my dad. My dad's an electrical engineer.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay. I'll
Did
try
you know
that.
I went to Georgia Tech for a little bit? So I wanted to be a biomedical engineer.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's the most complicated and of all the engineers.
Couldn't choose anything harder.
Yeah. And then I transferred out my sophomore year to Franciscan University.
Gotcha.
So I understand at least kind of understand what it takes to be an engineer.
Right.
Which is like Asperger's. No, I'm joking. But a lot of people at Georgia Tech have Asperger's. Your dad probably doesn't.
No.
You seem pretty,
Yeah.
Nothing against people with Asperger's. Brittany has it, and we love her.
That's good.
But
caught it last
year. Yeah, you can catch it.
You can catch it.
Really? How do you catch it? Physical contact? Does it travel in the air?
Droplets like COVID.
At Georgia Tech, man, I swear it stuck to surfaces. Because you could get it from anything. Anyways, back to you, Austin.
Yeah. No,
okay, so your dad's an engineer. You went to be an engineer,
Yep.
but you didn't pick that major.
No, that lasted like all of 90 days.
Okay.
And I was like, I failed physics. I was like, great.
Yeah.
That's like all of engineering. And so I decided like, okay, I'm going to go to the business school because that's where people who don't know what they want to do with their lives go. It's like, I'm going to be in business.
But were you like anyone in your family, or were you a business type person as a kid?
I mean, I grew up in like what you would consider like the ultra conservative town. So in Southeast Texas, mostly refineries.
Okay.
So oil and chemical production, which is what a lot of my family does. And on the other side is like healthcare. So my mom was a nurse. So I grew up in this situation of like, get this great job after your great education that will set you up with great benefits.
Yeah.
And
you would retire
35 years later,
yeah,
you'll be ready to retire.
Yeah.
So I don't think I have anyone in my family that comes to mind as like the prototypical entrepreneur. And if there are some people, which there might be, I have a big family, they weren't necessarily influences on me at that time.
Can you think of anything in your childhood that you could point? Because I've always heard and been self-conscious of that like, you know, these stories like Gary Vaynerchuk, like, from a young age, he was, you know, stealing flowers and then selling it to the owner of the house or whatever, you know, like just always from a young age entrepreneur. And I'm like, I don't know that I had that, you know?
I can't think of anything that was like that for me. I mean, I played Little League Baseball, like Pee Wee and stuff like that. So you'd sell chocolate bars, right?
Yeah.
I hated that. I have to get my mom to sell the chocolate bars.
Dude, I thought that was the biggest waste of my time. I was like, Dad, can you just give money? Like, can someone give money? Like, you guys are adults. You're supposed to know how this works. Like, what do you mean we don't have enough money for the wrestling team? Like, what is going on here? This is child labor.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I played sports. I played wrestling. I wrestled for a couple months.
For a couple months.
Yeah. I mean, look at this body.
Yeah.
I'm a wrestler. Built like a wrestler.
Yeah, so I couldn't think of anything that was like, oh yeah, I was definitely out there hustling on the playground. No, far from it.
So what'd you do right out of college?
Out of college, so I went to my marketing degree, did that, and then graduated. And I thought, it was like, okay, well, marketing, there's like really two tracks. It's sales and advertising. And sales is like this big open world of like no hell. Like, I'm not interested. And then marketing was like, okay, I know I can get a job in an advertising agency. So I applied around to like, I don't know, 25 agencies in Austin and Dallas, and I got like one interview in Dallas. So I came up here, worked for a company for about a year.
Doing what?
So I was ad exec. So basically I had clients from like Interstate Batteries to like Promised Land Dairy Farms.
Interesting.
So it was kind of like, and Park Place dealerships and different kind of things. And I just lowly little ad exec, you know, working amongst a team of probably 7 on these big accounts.
So it's like an agency. And you were in charge of doing what? What does an ad exec do?
Exactly. So, I mean,
is it like a glorified intern? It's like, do whatever.
At my level, it's like, double check this copy, go make these copies, fix the copier. Like, anything to do with copies, I was on it. So, they gave me a lot of opportunities to be involved in those types of meetings and like get to meet some of the people who were higher up in those worlds. It was really cool, but it was very much like I found if I was going to be selling anything, I was like, man, maybe I should care about it, because I had everything under the sun and none of it was really that important to me. Yeah.
So what made that shift, or what happened with that shift after a year?
Yeah. So at that year point, I was like, okay, well, I want to try something different. And my background growing up in Southeast Texas and Nederland was I had good church community. Like, I had a great Catholic church and I had good Catholic friends. And my youth minister at the time was a big inspiration for me through those 4 years.
Shout out to
Melissa Cisak, sister Melissa Cisak.
Oh, she's a sister now.
She's a sister now. Yeah,
good for her.
And she was just a huge influence in my life, and I thought, like, I want to be that for other people. So I was like, let's pursue youth ministry some way, somehow.
I did not know this about you.
Yeah, this is like a very short time. I mean, a year. But it just happened quickly. So this was I guess a full year out of college now. I've done my job with the ad agency. And I told them, I was like, hey, I'm going to pursue something else. And they're like, okay.
Did you tell them youth ministry?
Well, actually, yes.
Wow, how did they take that?
So my boss at the time, Michael Boone, super good guy, super Catholic guy.
Yeah.
And I remember going into his office kind of telling him, like, hey, I'm interested in this. I actually found this opportunity that I'd like to pursue, and I just want you to know about it because I respect you, and I thank you for all your time and support for me. And he was like, I think he asked me, he was like, are you sure you're not feeling like called to something else? Like alluding to the priesthood. Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
and I think he added in his head, like, this guy's going to be a priest.
Dude, everyone, I was the same way. When I told people I was transferring to Franciscan to pursue youth ministry, same thing. Everyone was like, oh, so like you're going to, and especially non-Catholics, because I was dating a non-Catholic and her whole family was just like, oh, so you want to be a priest?
Yeah.
Like, are you breaking up with, and I was like, no, like, that's not how, he's like, oh, or they would say like, you want to be a pastor? I'm like, well, kind of like a youth pastor, kind of, and it's really interesting. That's been very interesting. But But now it's so much more common working for the church. It seems like, I don't know.
At least you've definitely changed your circle, at least in some ways.
Yeah,
like you have more people who find that more common than before.
That's true. That's interesting.
I was like, talking to a lot of people at that time where it's like, they were looking at it as the most radical thing you can do. And I'm
Yeah.
like, if you really think like a 1-year church camp is the most radical thing I can do,
Yeah.
I need to surround myself with some
Yeah, you haven't seen
some
me
more radical types.
Yeah, you haven't seen me in Vegas.
Right. Exactly.
Do some more radical things.
There you go.
So okay, so how long did that last? That lasted a year.
So that was a 1-year contract. So I worked with the Pines Catholic Camp.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, John Egan.
Yep. John
Nice,
Egan.
dude. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, super good guy. We became very close
So
to that too.
so you went and did that for a year.
So I basically did their 3-month like summer counselor program, like
Yeah.
like with all the sophomores in college,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was funny in some ways. And then I did right after that was their 9-month missionary program.
Okay.
So that was me and like 7 other young adults like around my same age, who were just trying to find like, hey, we've graduated from college, what the heck do we do next? And we're all thinking about youth ministry in some capacity.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
then we worked with them and did like retreat-based ministry
Yeah.
for high schools and churches and things
What
like
was that like going from conservative town, really good community,
Mm-hmm.
Catholic community, and then suddenly being surrounded with like hundreds of
Yeah.
screaming kids?
Yeah, it's like going from the best Catholic in the room to the worst Catholic in the room. That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah.
You were a good Catholic if you went to church every Sunday and you went to like CCD is what we called it, but
Oh,
like
okay.
the continuing Catholic development every other Wednesday.
Interesting. So like you're pretty good at Pee Wee baseball, and then
Yeah.
suddenly you're playing college baseball,
that's
and
what it
you're
felt like.
oh wait, maybe I'm not super good.
It's
at
like, oh,
baseball.
you guys know all the rosary prayers? Like you don't have to take out your phone? or
Those
anything?
families. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Okay, yeah, I know it too.
Yeah.
Let me lead this next decade.
I feel like there's a lot of people though that like that happens to a lot of people. I think a lot of people that join Net or Focus or some of these
Yeah.
things feel this call, and then it's like that whole thing that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like something about the call and then the formation for it.
Mhm.
Was that your experience?
I agree. I think it was in my second week at camp. So this was during the summer, which it was like, oh wow, like being awake for 16 hours a day in the hot sun with 12-year-olds is the worst.
Yeah, what's it called? Big Sandy or something?
Yeah, Big Sandy.
Yeah,
It is truly a sand pit with
Yeah.
like a bunch of pine trees.
yeah.
And so I think it was the second week in adoration. I actually felt like very validated and like just being able to be in front of the Eucharist. And I was just like weeping. That was never like an experience I'd had before. And
Yeah.
I just felt like he was saying like, you're supposed to be here.
Dang,
I
that's
was like,
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then what? Then you left.
Yeah. And then I left. I felt him clearly. It was like, you're supposed to be here now.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
and at that end of that contract, like, at least for me, at this time, I'd been dating Kimmy through this, my now wife. I've been dating Kimmy through this whole time.
Mhm.
Like, we started dating 1 month before I left. So it was like a long distance thing that whole time.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew that I wanted to be back and be able to be with her and take the next step. And then at the end of it, at that time, I also knew I did not want to be in youth ministry.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, at least I figured that out.
Yeah, you
That's
discern
totally
that.
fine.
It's so crazy how God uses these like little moments where you feel like, man, what was that? That was
Right.
a waste of time if I would have just known earlier. But then it's something about God using those little things. And it might just be for one moment of connection 20 years later with
Mhm.
someone else that then starts something for them.
Yeah.
That's just crazy how I used to get really anxious about making those types of decisions because I'm like, no, it has to be the right decision. And then you just find that those little those little moments, like God uses them.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, it was a great opportunity to understand like what it was like to kind of engage
Yeah.
yourself in full prayer and
Yeah.
be surrounded by that.
Yeah.
And there's some aspects of that lifestyle and like complete service. Like it was kind of one of those things where you probably experience this too. It's like you just have those days where your head hits the pillow and you know you gave it everything.
Yeah.
And that was like, okay, now I'll do it 6 days a week. And then
Yeah. That's a good
sleep
feeling.
the whole 7th day.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
So then what's the next step for you?
Yeah, next step was kind of like we're at the 3/4 mark of that journey with the Pines, and I remember like Kimmy and I would see each other probably once a month during this time. She would come up, or I would go down to Dallas and see her, and she was filling me in. It's like, yeah, I just got done over the weekend I went to this baptismal party. We're talking about baptismal parties, like that's a Catholic thing.
Yeah.
We threw a party after a baptism.
Yeah.
And it was my now business partner, Davis Scott, one of his kids. I don't know which one. There's 5 of them now. So
Yeah, too many.
one of those.
I mean, in a good way, but
Yeah,
A lot.
exactly. Flourishing.
Yeah.
And she had been speaking with him, just kind of like catching up and stuff. And he had asked her, "It's like, oh, what's Austin up to these days?" And she's like, "Oh, he's at the Pines. He doesn't know what the heck he's doing next. He's nervous. He's freaking out about it every day." And he's like, oh, "Okay, well, I'm starting this real estate company. Like, maybe you should do that." And Kimmy's like, "I'll tell him." And she's like, "Anything to get him here." Is like, I don't care if he's a janitor.
And you haven't met Davis at this point.
So I have to basically take it back like 5 years.
Yeah.
The time I met Davis, he was one of the first people I met in college, and he's 2 years older than me. So we both just happen to be on the same Aggie Awakening retreat.
Gotcha.
And we're at the same table.
Yeah.
And at the time, he's like a hardcore Protestant. And so we just say hello, basically. And
Wow.
he tells the story like he basically wanted to just like come into that. He went to Aggie Awakening as a way to prove his wife wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's a bad way to do it, but okay.
Yeah.
And so he comes into it like basically just trying to pinpoint a few different people and be like, "What do you know about Mary? What do you believe about the sacraments? What's the deal with the Eucharist?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he's like,
I'm just here to meet cute girls,
yeah,
man.
Exactly.
Chill out, dude. Get your Bible out of my face, man.
Exactly. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So that's how we met.
Wait, but did the retreat make him Catholic?
That retreat helped.
It helped.
I think his wife ultimately made him Catholic.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
there-
awesome. So he's starting a real estate company, and you just jump right into that.
So he basically comes to me with this idea, or comes to me through Kimmy with this idea of like, "Hey, I'm doing this real estate thing with another guy from St. Anne.
Yeah.
I think you'd be good at it."
Yeah.
And so we spent probably the next 3 months. I'd call him like, I don't know, almost every night.
Yeah.
Be like, I'd get off of work and I'd have like 2 hours and be like, "Hey, tell me everything you know about real estate. Answer all these questions."
Yeah.
And I'm really afraid because I've never done this before.
Yeah.
I've never done anything in sales.
Yeah.
And he was super gracious and he did that. And then I spent about 60 days taking my classes online
Yeah.
while I was at the Pines.
Yeah.
And then just moved back to Dallas. And I was like, "What do you got for me?"
And when did you start as a real estate agent, or did you just go into the partnership?
I technically had my license, and there was no partnership at this point other than Davis and the other founder of Nail and Key, which is Brant.
Yeah.
Brant Barham. And so Davis and Brant had this thing set up, and they had like 1 or 2 other employees who were basically like admin roles.
Yeah.
And then they hired me as what we would, I guess, call an outside sales agent.
Nice.
Which was basically like, "Hey, here's a list of phone numbers. Call everyone you can and try and get them to meet with me."
Yeah. Yeah. And then I know, flash forward, you're now partner in the company.
Yeah.
And so how has that been, especially with COVID? Like and then you do so many other things too. Like you're doing this tiny house company that you're starting up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And is that a nonprofit or for profit?
For profit.
Okay. And then you have Prodigal Projects, which is a nonprofit
Right.
that basically, lays out the full restaurant dining experience for the homeless.
Right. Yeah.
Which is super cool.
Yeah.
Like a
it's fun.
menu, and then people
Yeah.
come.
Tablecloths.
Yeah, and people come and like host them and sit with them and have
Yep.
conversations, and
Exactly.
that's really cool. So, yeah, man, what is all of that? I mean, especially with COVID right now, but what is that experience like? I mean, like, what's it like running so many different things? Do you think and see yourself doing more, like other things?
I do. Yeah, I do see us doing more. Man, it definitely. I guess I don't know what that looks like though. It'll be really interesting. That's kind of the thing. Like we started, came onto Nail and Key and basically formed our new version of Nail and Key when Brant left and Davis and I took the helm, and we had all these ideas and aspirations, and it's changed so dramatically.
Yeah.
We had this. I remember we have like a TV like this in our old office, and it would just cycle through pictures. And so we had a bunch of these slides made that were just like inspirational and fun quotes.
Yeah.
And there was one that was a 2020 organizational chart. We made this in 2018, and it was a 2021, and it cycled through, and here we are today in halfway through 2020, and it had an organizational chart, and it was like broker, owner, lead agent, lead marketing. And if you counted all like the little tree branches, it was around 40 employees.
Really?
And I was just like,
who had made that?
We did.
That was like your future casting?
Yeah,
like by 2020, we'll have 40 employees.
A bunch of bozos. 40 employees. But we looked at it in 2020 now, and we thought like it's so clearly we didn't want that.
Yeah.
We just thought we wanted it.
Yeah.
So everything changes almost quarterly. It feels like we just kind of grow into your new new role and new development and lifestyle things change. Like Davis having his 5th baby, he's telling me like, here's how I need to adjust to make this work.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Like, let's adjust.
Yeah.
So it's been good. COVID's been really good for reflection.
Yeah.
Not much
sure.
else, but at
For
least for being able to take a step back and saying like, I don't need to keep myself busy in this office when I can be doing other things.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's been awesome for real estate and reprioritizing, and then also for creating the Stella Tiny Homes company.
Yeah.
And seeing what that could be, I guess.
What I love and I'm really fascinated about, as I've been kind of discovering that I have this like business mind side that I really enjoy, that has been awakened. What I really love is just the creativity. Like it's we don't think of, oftentimes, I guess maybe stereotypically we think of a business person as like maybe this old model of like suit and tie and structured, and not a artsy type thing.
Right.
But actually like it's such a, I mean, and in some ways, like, I guess all fields, you could kind of argue there's like left and right brain things going on. But even in engineering, I mean, like you're having to come up with, if you're doing a certain type of engineering, you're doing like creative problem solving, right? And what's interesting about being a business person or starting these businesses is that you could structure a company any way you want. Like you can, and then your belief system, you don't have to make a Catholic real estate company, but just your beliefs inform how you treat your employees, how you treat your customers, how you build your business.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way with Nail and Key? Like
I do. It's funny because I absolutely agree with everything you say, and then I'll give you an example of what we did that took that too far.
Okay.
We just did it poorly.
Yeah.
So we created Nail and Key back in the early days with like the social justice concept.
Yeah.
It's like why can't we tithe as a business like we're tied to like we were called to tithe as an individual to our church? We're like, let's do that.
Yeah.
And so we started doing 10% of every commission check, so we're off the revenue. 10% of the revenue would go towards a nonprofit of our choosing. And so we worked in partnership with a different homeless ministry at the time before we'd started our own. And we were cutting checks and giving them checks. And it was good, but it was also like, oh wow, we're like, we can't pay the bills.
Yeah, you're like destroying your company somehow. Yeah.
We're putting ourselves in this state where we're kind of like eating away at our own future potential.
Yeah.
Because the company is meant to serve the customers really, really well. Like that's the goal. Serve the customers and serve your people, and then everything kind of like perpetuates itself. And that's like the flywheel. And you just get that going, and it just takes off. And then the opportunities, not that it should come only later, but the opportunities for giving out of your abundance become really, really incredible.
I had this similar experience. We started a Catholic subscription box company, LumiBox.
Okay.
And this is like a couple years back, but this idea was very, I don't know, just we've seen it a lot, like Tom's shoes, like buy a pair, give a pair, all these different models. And we thought, let's do that. That's really cool. And it'll probably encourage people to like sign up, and, it'll be this really cool thing. But we had the same problem where we were like, we're not surviving. Yeah. This right now feels like a huge percentage. And then we committed to it every month instead of just like announcing one month that we were giving some money, like making use of the money, but the commitment to it. And then we found that when we tested removing that from the language, like it didn't affect, like no one was super motivated by it, or like it wasn't necessarily something that, not that you would do it to affect sales, like and to sell more, but it was like no one cared. Like we were expecting someone to email us and go, hey, you're not, but no one did.
We had the same exact experience. It's like, okay, well, no one's going to choose me to help them make the largest financial purchase of their life because I'll give a chunk of that to some homeless person they'll never meet. It's really blunt, and it's not meant to sound crash or anything like that. It's more like, okay, these people need someone they can trust. They need someone that they can put their lives in, and I'm going to give them the best service I can. If I can contribute in other ways to other things that are meaningful to me, then I'll do that as well. But it doesn't have to come in that form.
That's awesome.
So we just had to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, for sure.
It took a little while. It's kind of hard. I think a lot of that stuff takes a shot at your pride.
Yeah, because you're like, I was doing something good. Like, and
why didn't it work?
Yeah, why is this not working? Or there's also, you can struggle with just like the guilt of, like this internal pressure. I want to be the type of person that is like this.
Yeah,
And then when you come up short from that, it's like, being too hard on yourself.
exactly.
We want to give, oh crap, I should have had it pulled up. If I pull up my phone, it's normally because I'm turning on or off the AC.
No
'cause I
worries.
haven't figured that out. But then we now have a message from one of our sponsors. What? Oh no, I can control it from my phone. The AC. I'm rough. Well, I already did it. Hi everyone. Right now is a message from our sponsor, patreon.com/the-show. You can support the studio. You can support everything that we're doing. You can support this podcast and other podcasts we're going to come out with, and all the YouTube stuff that we're going to be doing. If you go to patreon.com/the-studio, or wait, no, the show, patreon.com/the-show. Also, the cool thing about signing up there and giving a little bit is that I kind of put all of my, like, everything that's coming out in the future, all my ideas, like, before they're actually a reality. So there's some cool things that are coming out. Some big announcements, let's say. Some big things.
Nice.
Some cool partnerships. So just a lot of cool things. So if you go there, you're going to get the scoop. That's about it. Also, we'll give you a shout out on the show. And it'll help afford all the expensive jackets that Brittany buys. It won't really, but she does drive a Porsche. Your problem. You're the 1%. Anyways, thank you for thank you for supporting the show and all the great shows. Yeah, do we do this? Should we do the sound effect after too?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really signs it
here's
off.
another segment. We have a package open. Why don't you open this and I'll pull up the you can send us packages to open on the show. 203 North Starnes Avenue, Grapevine, Texas 76051. Please call ahead if you're just going to show up. Don't be creepy. Why don't you open that up and I'll look up, I forget the name of the company that sent this.
The Saint Clothing Co.
The Saint Clothing Co.
in Charlotte, North Carolina.
So let's see what they gave us here. And they DM'd me and said, sending some stuff. Oh, they did ask my size.
Oh, good.
So I am going to have to put it on. I'm going to have to take off my clothes right here on camera.
Okay.
Here we go. Saint Clothing Co. What do you think about this, Austin?
You ready?
This company's kind of cool.
I recognize that shirt.
Who runs this? Who runs this company? I want to know. The Saint Clothing Company. We are Saint.
Okay.
Okay, so give us your... Okay, so product reviews. First thing we want to know... Oh, there's a little snaggy there. What does it smell like to you, Austin? It smells like... You know when
No idea.
you know when you go to your friend's house and they wash, like, their laundry comes out of the dryer,
Yeah.
and it doesn't smell like your laundry, but it smells good. It just doesn't smell like your laundry.
Right.
That's what this smells like.
Okay.
What does this
I can get
taste like?
behind
What does
that.
this shirt taste like? It kind
Similar.
of similar, the same thing.
Yeah.
You know
Okay.
when your friend's
I think we
laundry
got it.
comes out of the dryer and you taste
And
it,
You taste it. Yeah.
and it's not your laundry.
Doesn't
So
taste like my
I kind
laundry.
of like this. Let me see the design here too.
Oh, yeah.
What was the design on the front? I kind of like this.
Smiley face.
The style of this.
God has already won.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. God has already won. Saint established 2019. What's on the back? Fear is the enemy. Fear is the. Brittany, can you read that? What is this? Fear? I don't know. Fear the.
Fear is the enemy. With God, there is no fear.
Ah, okay. The Saint Clothing Co. Guys, so go check them out online, Saint Clothing Co. Thanks, guys, for sending this. You guys are the best. We'll try to take some product photos later.
Nice.
What? All right. What's next? Oh, give us the story, the origin story of Prodigal Projects.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good because we're basically getting to that point in nailing Keys history where that started to form. So
Yeah.
at that time,
Well, I mean, it makes sense. You're like, all right, we're not donating.
we
Let's just start a nonprofit.
right. It's like let's still do some good because we can.
Yeah.
And so, Prodigal Project started with like this idea of what can we give back, and Davis actually making the connection of just like we sell homes. There are people without homes. Like there are people who would never be our clients, but I bet we could help them in some way.
Yeah.
Like okay, good
Yeah.
enough. So we did some research, and we actually spent some time down in Austin at the Community First Village, and that's run by an organization called Mobile Loaves and Fishes.
Interesting.
And so this nonprofit, I mean, to me, one of like the top-notch nonprofits in the country.
Can you look that up, Kyle? The mobile, what's it called?
Mobile Loaves and Fishes.
But that's the company.
That's their brand. Check out the Community First Village.
Okay, Community First Village. Okay.
Yeah.
So you went to visit there.
So we went to visit, and basically what they've done is now they're on phase 2. At the time they weren't. It's a 50-plus acre compound where they've taken the formerly homeless of Austin and given them housing in these micro homes.
Okay.
So they literally
Are they
have
like trailers, or are they like tiny homes?
It's a mixture. So they built tiny homes and foundations, and then they have these like trailer park on steroids, essentially.
Okay,
is how they would describe it. And then included in that, so you can kind of see some 100 RV/park homes, 130 micro homes.
How many acres is this on?
50.
27.
27. Okay, and then phase 2 is another 25.
Wow.
So that's kind of how they did it. And then all these they have communal showers for the men and communal showers for the women.
So how come this company, like, why couldn't the government, or why a nonprofit, like, why I mean, I guess not why are they doing it, I mean I understand why they're doing it, but okay, so I'm understand. Wow, so these are like probably not super expensive, but at least it's a solid house. I mean, it's a solid place.
It's probably the size of this room in many ways, and it'll have your bed and
but it's shelter
kitchen and things like that. Yeah, it's what they kind of talk about it in detail is that living in dignity.
Yeah.
And so these they have these communal workshops. So they actually teach like rehabilitation through art and woodworking and like blacksmithing.
Interesting.
And organic gardening. These people, they earn a dignified income and they pay their rent.
Yeah.
Like it's some pretty special things that they do. And I think it works for them and it works for the population they serve. Every community would have to be slightly different.
Yeah. Have you read this book? Kyle, you could try to find, I forget what it's called, but I think it's John Hari, something John Hari or something about connection or community. And he gave a TED talk, I think, too, about addiction, and that maybe we've been approaching it wrong. This whole thing about rats, and have you heard about this? They did this study with.
Okay, I think I know. Keep going.
They did this study. So this is how the story goes. When they first were studying addiction, they would give a rat the drug heroin, and give them some of it in the water, and they could choose between heroin or water, just like regular water, or water with heroin. And the rats would choose the heroin and get so addicted to it, and then eventually die. Here you go. Yeah, John. Let's not watch it, but Johan Hari, and
I think wasn't it based on whether or not they were isolated?
Yeah. So then later, another scientist comes along and goes, "Look, that study wasn't complete because the rat was alone." So then he had two tests where he did the same thing, but the control. But in another one, he made rat park where they could have as much food as they want. They could play with other rats. It was like an amazing space. And he found, surprisingly, that those rats did not choose some of them would try the heroin because I mean, you're a rat. Let's do some heroin.
It's right there.
Yeah, but then they wouldn't choose. Like they wouldn't get addicted. They wouldn't die.
Right.
And so the theory was that maybe community is a antidote for addiction. And then there was a big kind of national experiment because the Vietnam War, there were so many people abusing substances in the war.
Yeah.
They're in this horrible situation, facing death all the time, and people were really afraid that if the old model was true, all these guys are gonna come back like heroin zombies.
Right.
But it turned out that it was like some really small percentage of people that kept using.
Yeah.
Whereas if the people that came to healthy families, healthy community, they suddenly didn't need that coping mechanism anymore. And when I mean, kind of the common thing is like if someone is really addicted to a substance, there's this like let them hit rock bottom and kind of isolate them from your community. Like they need to, like, we don't want to encourage it or enable it.
Yeah.
And his kind of thing is maybe there's a way to provide community and, like you said, treat them as a respect their dignity as a human person,
as a dignified part of that unit.
Yeah.
And that's something. So Alan Graham is the founder of Mobile Loaves and Fishes, and it is a Catholic based ministry. And his quote that he'll often give, and what they found in their research over doing this for 20 plus years, was the number one cause of homelessness is the catastrophic loss of family. And you have to think about it, because that's not what we're taught.
Yeah.
I think we all have our preconceived notions of like it's drug abuse, it's the inability to hold down a job, it's maybe if you're
Mental-
being generous, you'll say it's mental illness.
Mental illness, yeah.
But a lot of people won't even say that.
Yeah.
And so we kind of have to look at it from, well, if you didn't have your family, and I mean anyone,
Yeah.
and you kind of ripped away all those safety nets that we're raised on,
Yeah.
you know, because you didn't come out of the womb just ready to take on the world,
Yeah.
then where would you be?
Yeah.
And once you start to really reflect on that question, you start to get down to the heart of what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at our current modern setup. I mean, of any time we have, it feels like less and less community, less and less maybe authentic, not authentic, but like very fruitful and life-giving experiences of community, because it's so easy.
We might have plenty of interactions.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, we have so much luxury at this point that it's not like we're necessarily always so useful, in the sense that like we don't have to wake up and go plow the back 40
exactly
because someone's counting on us.
Right.
Like, you know, we're all working, but it, you know, there's kind of like that missing sense of of like you're needed. And that always stuck with me, especially I wonder in these like mobile parks and stuff, if there was some work, I guess, right? Like it looked like they give them work, right? They give them.
So they ask everyone to provide a rental. It's a very low rent, and most of the community is paying that out through their benefits through the government.
Yeah.
Collecting Social Security, disabilities, or both.
Yeah.
And then a good 30 to 40% of the community contributes to that and earns a dignified income through selling their own artwork or, you know, like tending to their own patch of the farm and selling that produce and things like that.
Yeah.
So they're really trying to get people in, and then they have another element that I think is really special and early is the incorporation of families. So what they'll do is anybody who's looking for a different lifestyle, who kind of understands what they're getting into, is they can live there
and just be a neighbor.
Yeah,
just like be
exactly.
there. That's really cool.
Just make a neighborhood.
Yeah, man, that's really interesting. So you went and visited there, and then how did Prodigal Projects
that
come
kind
out
of
of that?
Stemmed from the idea of like, holy cow, we could do this.
Yeah.
You know, and with all the fire in the world, saying like, this needs to be in Dallas. It needs to be everywhere, but it needs to be where we are too.
Yeah. And
so we rushed back and came into this place of like, what do we need to do to make this happen? And so it was so funny. You know, I had like 2 or 3 meetings with like city officials. Like, I don't know how I got in the door.
Yeah, how'd you do that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't really remember now that I'm thinking about it. I think it was more just like they needed help too.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're willing to listen to anything because we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Not to say that not sorry, Dallas officials. You're great.
Love you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to your names. And so what we did was just try and like connect with people, just try and share the experience and the story. And so one night I'm forgetting the name. What's the name? We do it at the Granada. It's that big 635.
Oh, there you go. Yep, 635.
Thank you. Shout out to Dave and Lauren Moore. The 635 and putting that on. And we were like, okay, I want to go. And one night I'm there, and they announce at the end of it, it's like, hey, there is a Catholic Outreach Homeless Coalition. Some big long word thing that they use. It's probably like that. And I was like, heck yes, that's it. Like, those are the people I need to talk to, because these are going to be the big wigs of the Catholic world trying to
do this.
At the time, I was probably saying like fight or solve homelessness, something really naive. But
fight the homeless.
Yeah, let's fight those homeless. That's probably what I thought.
Austin just out here fighting the homeless.
Right. Ready to go. Let's get them out of homelessness. And so I tell Davis, and we're both pumped. And then they had set this night like a week from the date that they announced it. And it's like, we're going. So we go to like the diocese of the Dallas diocese office, and we get there, and the guy who had announced it was Sammy Aguimenez, and he had like, you know, introduced himself. And I was like, hey man, good to see you. Like, we're so excited. Like, can't wait to be here. Like, and we're still like seriously so pumped with this idea. Like, these are going to be the people who are going to make things happen.
Yeah.
And we get in there, and it's a conference table room, and there's like 4 other people who are more or less the same position as us in every way you can imagine.
Yeah.
And it was just like, dang, it was a little deflating. And part of that was just like deflating my own ego.
What do you mean the same position as you? Like,
so a bunch of young people who just had this idea of like, I think it'd be nice to help the homeless. What would you guys like to do?
Okay.
And everybody was kind of pointing around the room.
And that was
like,
deflating.
Yeah, it was. Because I guess I had it in my head, of course.
That someone's doing this and they have a plan and I can just join up.
I can just be a part of this. And I think I have some good ideas. And I think this place down in Austin has some great ideas. So what if we kind of, anchored up to that?
Yeah.
Made sense of it. But it was, it was like this roundtable discussion of what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? And I didn't feel like in any way I could just offer up this idea of let's build a homeless village.
Yeah.
Let's build a village for the homeless. And it ended up being like this discussion of like, let's do a shoebox drive for toiletries. It's like, okay, that's not bad at all. In fact, it's good.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Someone should do that.
Need and someone should do that. But I couldn't have been more like sad.
Yeah, it doesn't get you. Didn't get you going.
No, it doesn't. It didn't.
I struggle with that too. Like there are things that are good ideas, but for me, I need world changing vision. Like I need something to get behind. I need something that really gets me going. It gets me out of bed. Like I need something that's like we're gonna make an impact. And that's good and bad.
It's good. It is in moderation.
And praise God for the people that are collecting bottle caps and stuff and doing those things like that. Someone should do that. But I have that experience a lot too, where it's like someone should do. I'm glad they're doing it.
Right.
I'm not doing that.
Right. And so we left that night. We're just like, okay, what do we do? It's like 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. We're like, let's go get some food. So we go over to Eatsy's down in Dallas and we grab food and we're just sitting out there. And Davis and I are just like hashing things out, and we're just convinced we have to do something. And so we're thinking back to how Mobile Loaves and Fishes started, and what they actually started with was a food drive. Like they would just hand out sack lunches to people on the streets, and they did that for probably 2 years before they first got a food truck. And it was almost like a food catering truck, and then they drive around, have a route, and help volunteers plan around that.
That's
Davis
cool.
was like, and we're both big thinkers, and the funny thing is the food truck was the smallest thing that we felt like we could do that we'd be excited about. Everything else felt not exciting, which again, that's a character flaw for me more than it is like a rally cry. So he's pitching the food truck. I'm playing devil's advocate, which I normally do in these situations, and telling him why it couldn't work or the restrictions and the issues that we'd have with permitting and yada yada, things I don't even know about, but things I pretend to know about sometimes. And we're just talking, and you have eaten half our food, and this guy walks by. He stops us and he's like, "Hey man, like, are you gonna finish that?" He's like pointing to like a cold pork chop. It's like, no. He's like, and at this point we're like, oh my gosh, it's a homeless person. You know, like
time to fight him.
Time to fight him. I'm ready. And he introduces himself. He's like, "Hey, my name is Rodney. Like, I'm out here tonight and I'm just looking for some food, if that's okay." And we're just like, "Yes, come eat with us, Rodney. Come here." And
Rodney, we're really fighting about this idea. You can be tiebreaker.
Exactly. What do you think? No food truck or food truck? And I think one of the first things I asked him was just like, "Do you believe in God, Rodney?" I'm like so overcome with the spirit. It's annoying. It's like,
he's holding a pork chop in his mouth. He's like, this is going to be one of those pork chops. Like, I've had a pork chop like this before.
Never mind. And he's like, "Yes, I do. I love the Lord," and super kind. And we get to know Rodney's story and his experience with homelessness and his experience through life, and just an awesome dude. Had a great conversation with him that night. And I remember as we were kind of wrapping up, we probably talked for like 30, 45 minutes. As we were kind of wrapping up, it's like, "Rodney, like, we're just two dudes who have no idea what your life's been like and probably never will. We don't know how to help you. We don't know how to help anyone that's in a similar situation as you, but if we could help you in some way, what do you think that would be?" And his answer was really inspiring. He's just like, "I just want somebody to give me a chance." And we kind of took that to mean like, I just want somebody to, give him the time of day and give him the opportunity to prove that he's still a human and that he has gifts and skills that were innately given to him by our Creator. And we're like, okay, we're going to figure that out. And at the time, this is how it originally started, was like, we were going to, almost, making Rodney our poster child. It was a bad way of putting what was at the time a very pure and real thought. was like, he had spent some time as a chef. He was like, let's get Rodney back into the kitchen. So we spent probably a month, like once a week or once every other week, we would meet him for breakfast down in Dallas.
Yeah.
You know, usually through Facebook Messenger or whenever his phone was charged.
Yeah.
He would shoot me a text and just be like, let's get some pancakes.
Yeah.
And so we'd talk, and, you know, he came one day to breakfast with like a menu that he had prepared, and he is like, this is all the stuff I want to make, or stuff I know how to make. I was like, okay, let's have a dinner.
Wow.
And we basically just tried to get it to this point of like, I guess what we're going to do is host a meal for people.
And Rodney's going to cook.
And we're going to try and get Rodney to cook.
Yeah.
And so we kind of figured out some solutions. It was between like, do we do a pop-up restaurant in a parking lot? Do we take over a real restaurant? Do we partner with a nonprofit? And ultimately, it came down to partnering with a nonprofit, Our Calling, which is centrally located near Deep Ellum in South Dallas, and has a tremendous relationship with those experiencing homelessness in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a place of comfort and dignity for all parties.
Yeah.
And so we were like, let's do that. As we were getting closer and closer to the details, it became more and more clear that the relationship with Rodney was changing because, you know, Rodney was changing, or we were changing, however you want to look at it. It was a gentle reminder of like, this person needs so much more than what we can provide. Doesn't mean we don't try and provide anything. It just means like, this is a person who's a product of a failing system and needs more than just two young guys trying to say, let's get you in the kitchen again, when he is worried about where he's going to sleep at night and when he's going to get his medication, and if the hospital is going to be able to discharge him, and all these different things.
Yeah.
So that relationship deteriorated over time because Rodney, he started becoming less and less active in messaging or breakfast and things like that. And we became more and more active in the planning and preparation of the thing that's supposed to serve the person.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an interesting little conundrum that we had to go through looking back on it. It's like, was that the right thing, or was just maybe Rodney was just the person we were supposed to focus on?
Yeah.
So, I mean, all things happen for a reason.
For sure.
We go through that and we get to this point of having, you know, this entity now created, Prodigal Projects. I think that's something, you know, you're an entrepreneur when you always want to just start a brand name and build an LLC. It's like, none of this is necessary, but we felt like we had to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
So we formed that. We formed a nonprofit.
Yeah, and it helps for people to donate and stuff too.
It does help for people to donate. And in the beginning, there was no donations other than just us.
Yeah.
Like, we were just contributing parts of our checks and trying to figure that out. And we started our first, what we would call our first initiative, was just Feast Day. And so Feast Day was like, let's get together and have the Sundays that our old Christian fathers would have talked about.
Yeah.
Let's get the community together, like open up the doors and just have whoever's around come in and have a good meal.
Yeah.
And so we adopted that dine with dignity and share stories and time together philosophy.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you first explained it to me, I really thought it was great because, I mean, I think it's good that there are like soup kitchens and places where people can get a good meal.
Necessary.
But what was really cool was this idea of like the homeless and others will all sit around the same table and all order a meal and all share conversations. And I thought that was really, really cool. I don't know if I've told the story before on here, but we went and did, well, one, when I was a kid in Florida for a couple of years, like every other weekend or something, we went, there was a woman in Tampa that just started a homeless thing like out of a trailer at the back of her truck, and it just kind of grew and grew, and there's like 4 different stops where we'd go set up everything, you know. And I'm a super young kid, you know, that was a very formative experience. Then later in college, we met this brother who was just like a lay Franciscan or something. It was like, and brother, I forget his name, but he just lived a celibate lifestyle and walked the streets of Atlanta and just, you know, it did some like giving and handing out food, but a bunch of us college kids like meet up because we'd heard about it, and I was kind of connected to some campus's Catholic center, maybe, I don't know. Anyways, so we heard about it and we went out, and like maybe 8 of us, and we had a bunch of peanut butter jelly sandwiches and and bags. And he said something that really stuck with me. He said, you know, what's the greatest need of any human person? And we said all sorts of things, you know, happiness or blah, blah. And he said, I really believe that the greatest need is to help. Like, everyone wants to help someone.
Mhm.
And he said, you guys have all come out here today because you wanted to help.
Right.
And he said, but you're going to be trying to help people that have that same need. And he said, like, everyone that you encounter today, they have the exact same need. They want to help. So I want you to look for opportunities to allow them to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're going to want to tell you stories. They're going to want to teach you. They're going to want to talk about things mistakes they've made. Like you're giving them something, but you need to let them give you something.
Absolutely.
Because they don't get that opportunity often. People
hardly ever. Yeah.
Yeah. And that whole thing, that stuck with me for so long. And it's also why I really resonate with Prodigal Projects, because I could sense that like let's have the dignity of all sitting around together.
And so yeah, that's what the dinners were designed for. And so I remember our first one was just coming together and it's just like in fumes. Me and Davis and I and our closest friends. It was just like sending out text messages like, please, 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 please come. And so I think we had around 40 volunteers, maybe 50. Which, I mean, getting anybody, you know, between the age of 20 and 30 on a weeknight, to 40 minutes outside of their home, like that was impressive. And so God bless those first volunteers; they're amazing. And I think we served like 100 to 120 individuals.
Wow,
and that was nuts. Just like we're filling up the place, and we didn't have a kitchen at the time, so we had like people frying chicken in a trailer out back. It was like 106. It was dead of summer. And everybody's sweating like crazy, and everybody was so happy.
Wow.
And it was really fun. And it was exactly what you're describing in that story with the brother. It's like that opportunity to help is so clearly resonant, because we have, you know, towards some of the last feast days we were having, like you could see people wanting, like our guests were now wanting to be servers, or were now wanting to lead the conversation at the table, lead the prayers. And it was just like so cool to be a part of that.
That is so like, in that, again, it's like you're giving them an opportunity to help. You give them an opportunity to have that dignity and to say, yeah, I want to host a table, you know, I want to help, I want to wait and serve. And
exactly,
it's amazing, man.
And it's never about the food. And you mentioned the soup kitchen metaphor, and it's like, yeah, those are good and necessary, and I'm glad they exist. But I mean, it wouldn't matter if we served food or good food, or if we played checkers. We just wanted people to be together and give them an opportunity to feel heard and seen. And it's like a lot of organizations will do this kind of big thing on a Christmas and a Thanksgiving, which is also beautiful and good and necessary. But when I can't imagine it, but I have to imagine when you're living on the streets and 90% of the people you walk by won't make eye contact with you, then one dinner a month where someone would say like, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
That has to make their year.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
And just give you uninterrupted eye contact for an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's another thing too. Like, it's not just like how's your day going, man? As I check out, you know, at the cash register, it's like, we're sitting here for a while.
I'd like to know your story.
Yeah.
And so that's been really awesome.
Yeah. Do you think, so I'm really fascinated by this idea of I don't even know how to call this, but these like flexible mission-driven spaces like this. So I'm really interested in like the nonprofit thing you're doing. I'm also kind of interested in this, like, I mean, the same thing, but around these, they used to call them almost business centers or community centers. There's also co-work, a neighborhood co-op.
Yeah.
This like idea, one just went in, I was telling you about earlier, in Grapevine, House of Shine or whatever. And it's like a nonprofit that helps people discover their worth and identity or something.
Okay.
And there's all these different classes for adults. There's story time for kids. There's a few others, a unique space where leaders come to grow. And they have like, it's listed as a museum online. Okay, here we go. Good. It's a nonprofit interactive museum dedicated to the study of you. Our mission is to help people from 5 to 95 discover who they are and why their contribution to the world matters. They have like arts and crafts. I mean, it's like a library on steroids. They have arts and crafts, but they also have like women-owned business classes, like lectures
really?
for women-owned business. Like, and
I see that.
And I love this idea of, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's similar to a church in the sense of we're trying to enrich the community. That's the building. I thought about buying this build. Well, I mean, I dad didn't have the means to buy the building.
Dreamed about buying the
But
building.
when I saw this building has been for sale for a while, I'm like, man, it would be cool. My wife and I walked around and I'm like, man, it would be really cool. Like this space in this building would be really cool.
Yeah. Looks
And so
gorgeous.
I like that there's a few others that there's a Communion is a co-work space in downtown Dallas that has family meals kind of thing going on. And then there's a few others, and I don't know what to call it.
One, there's one in Fort Worth. It's like a pay what you can restaurant concept.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So the bill is always $0. You put whatever you want.
Wow, that's really interesting.
And so and they
So
place themselves in an area where they were very strategic about it. I got to talk with the chef and co-owner, really nice guy, and he's that, I guess his right brain is analytical, and he looked at it as like, if I could find the neighborhood where I knew that 60% of my patrons could afford the meal plus, and then I knew I could serve the 40% on the less than the bill or free.
Yeah,
it's like it just has to be sustainable. I think that's what good ministry is. It's a business model, quote unquote business model, that gives you the opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've done this several times now. I'll probably keep doing it in other industries. Is I'll create something that I think is meant to serve the greatest good right out of the gate, but I didn't give myself any potential for what next year could be.
Yeah, that's a good point. I found in youth ministry that if we held a fundraising car wash and we put a price, $5 or whatever, or $10, whatever the price was.
Yeah.
And then if we tried it again but put no price, we always made more money with the no price.
Really?
Because there's people like, what's this for? And some people are stingy, and then some people are very generous.
Exactly.
But when you put a price, the generous people come down sometimes to it, and then the stingy people maybe come up a little bit, or they gripe about it, or they just don't do it.
Yeah.
But when we put, and I think this has been a thing that Gumroad is like a sales website where you can sell products and services and stuff, and they have a pay what you want. And they've found similar things. There's been some people that have found like they make more money if they just put pay what you want. Some people use it for free and then come back and donate like $100 because they're like, this was great. Like this helped me tremendously.
That's amazing.
There's another space, and I'm probably going to be talking, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably going to hear me process this a lot. These different types of spaces. There's a space, Wax space in Dallas, I think as well. And they have, it's a co-work space with a partnership with a local roastery. Okay. And then they also have lectures on like business lectures. So it's like the way I'm thinking about it is Starbucks is a national, WeWork, these types of, they're like national. Yeah. This is like the local coffee shop.
It's the people you know.
Right? So like this version and business model is like there's one space and we're hyper local. And how can we benefit the community?
I love that. That's the Mother Teresa sweep your own doorstep philosophy.
It's really interesting, and I like the
Saint Mother Teresa.
And I like the combination of business and nonprofit, right? Like for-profit, nonprofit, that kind of combination.
I'm a little more capitalist in nature than a lot of my fellow Catholics, and so I just look at it as like, after owning both a for-profit and starting a nonprofit, I sometimes wonder why nonprofits exist.
Yeah, so that's what I'm nervous about, and I'm torn between the two as well, because I've heard some people say nonprofits often, it's easier to hide a really failing business model, like or just unhealthy. I mean, obviously Mother Teresa and what she was doing in Calcutta is not a sustainable profit or business model, right? But sometimes a nonprofit model can hide your effectiveness and your organizational health because it's like, well, more money's just going to come in, and that's what I'm a little. So I someone told me that advice way back when, and I've kind of always been set on like for profit.
You never know until you try both.
True.
I just found that for us, or for me personally, it was like, man, the nonprofit stuff was harder.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it just became, I don't know, and maybe part of it, which was a good thing, was you kind of have to surrender yourself a lot to whatever might happen. Yeah. Whereas like the for-profit stuff is like, I know what I need to do. I can go out there and do it. But I think this is awesome. I think that philosophy is awesome of, we have to start thinking about holistic businesses that serve both the customer, our workers, ourselves, and the community at large.
Yeah.
Both I would go as far as to both ecologically and through service.
Yeah.
And the betterment of those around you. Like
Yeah.
that's what true capitalism was designed for.
Yeah.
And
What would you call these things, like creative business models? Like what do you call it? Like, I mean, building. And do you feel like coming out of COVID, I think this is going to be more and more of a trend. These really interesting creative buildings as spaces for people to come together and experience community.
Yeah.
And it's like a church, but and some of these are in connection with the church. Like Life in Deep Ellum is connected to a church. It's a nonprofit that's funded and supported by a church, but it's an outpost that's meant to not be like so direct.
Right.
It's just, we're in the community, we're hosting people, we're doing hospitality, we're the front porch almost.
Yeah.
And then the church is like, yeah, like if you're interested, come to the church. But
well, it's funny. It's like if we were looking back, I don't know, 200 years ago, we were describing what this place is and what it does and how people gather and how many people were there, we'd be talking about the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
what do you think shifted in that?
Oh gosh, a lot.
I don't communists.
Yeah, those guys.
The libs.
I'm probably not educated enough to speak on it, but it is really interesting to see where our gathering spaces have shifted to.
Yeah.
And what community has looked like and what we're trying to create it in the future. I think it's really awesome that we're creating these daily need places like coffee shops and restaurants. There's a restaurant in Dallas that employs at-risk youth, and so it's kids who would otherwise be placed in the juvenile detention system, who are given an opportunity to recreate themselves through culinary mastery.
Interesting.
Like, amazing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's so great, and I'm glad that you guys can fund yourself through donations and through your business model.
We had a guy on the last episode, Andrew Whaley. Kyle.
Yeah, enjoy. Sorry, my mic was on mute.
No, it's fine.
The feedback.
Yeah. He said people used to always have a third place. Like the first place is your home, second place is your work, and then everyone used to have a third place, and the third place was either a tavern or a coffee shop. There was always like a third place, and the third place was where people come together and be on the same level and be equal and experience community and have conversations. And he said, with modern technology and the modern age, we have a lot of that being stripped away, and that third place could be churches as well. It's places of community where everyone's equal. But a lot of people today, like I think, in my opinion, a lot of people in today's day and age, like they don't know that they want a church as a third place, or they feel like they've heard the Christian message, like that's not my third place. But I feel like people really still long for that, and it's the coffee shops, it's the bar, it's and people really want, it's Cheers, right? It's the show Cheers. And I wonder if out of COVID we're gonna really have a heightened sense of that need for community, the in-person or the just being around other people.
I think so. I think you and I have read a lot of the same books, and I think it was Simon Sinek's most recent book, The Infinite Game.
Oh, I haven't read that yet.
It's a great one. I think that was I was starting to read that and kind of understand where he's coming from, and also apply it to some philosophies of like strength finders and other types of resources like that, where I was like, who the heck am I? I'm trying to understand, like, what is it that makes me me?
Yeah.
And doing this with my wife and Davis, my business partner, and his wife Jenna, and we're just kind of talking about like, well, what is it that makes us us, and how like our community has grown so much over the past few years. And the idea, it's broad, of course, but the simple idea of community was what we all like pinpointed. And it's like, I just don't know how I can do anything without this massive support group. Yeah. And like you guys are the core group of that, plus my family.
Yeah.
And then it extends out and out and out and out.
Yeah.
And we were just thinking about that, and it's like, I mean, it's true, and it's true in Nail and Key, and the realtors and business partners that we have, the clients that we work with, they're people I see fairly regularly, the people I want to go to dinner with and spend time with and know about their families. I see it with Prodigal Projects and the network of relationships that was starting to build and create through these, it's just through people who would never interact otherwise. Yeah. And starting to strengthen that was amazing. And then it was trying to like, well, what do we do next that is really community based, that is really simplistic in nature? And that's when we came up with the Stella tiny homes concept, which is kind of a funny little connection.
So what's the mission behind Stella?
So right now, it's funny. We're very for profit in that we're trying to construct tiny homes on wheels.
Yeah.
So we're looking
on wheels.
Yeah.
Wait, why on wheels?
Oh yeah, check out our Facebook page that hasn't started yet.
Wait, what do you mean on wheels? Like
so
mobile homes that you can kind of drag
they're
around?
Built on trailers.
What?
So, maybe I think Kyle, you just search tiny homes on wheels.
Wait, so is the idea someone just like is almost like an RV, like someone has it behind their truck and just moves around?
Yeah. So you can kind of get an idea here. You build them on these engineered trailers, and then you hook up your 1 ton or F350 and you just pull that around.
So it's kind of like having an RV, but you're carrying around your cabin.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I love the whole tiny home, tiny shed, like she shed kind of man cave type stuff. It's so oh yeah, granny pod. I love
pods, yes.
No, that's a really I mean I seriously, for anyone who has an older parent or someone who's like, you're starting to have that conversation about, do we put them in hospice? Do we pay for someone? Yeah. Put
them in the backyard.
Think about a 500 square foot home that you build out and they're there. Like, I think it's really.
There's one right there, 25,000 for the Bunky Voss cabby thingy.
Yeah. And think about it. Like, your parents get to still have that dignity, but they're close by. Like, you don't have to buy a new house or something. If you don't have the means to have them in your house, you don't want to add on or something. I think this is there's a country that I remember reading where like they've pretty much done away with all hospice or end of life care type things because people just do these in their backyard.
Dude, and
there's one of those Swedish countries.
There's even more countries like that don't even know what hospice is.
I know, because they have extended families.
Yeah, exactly. My wife is Filipino.
Okay.
And so when we traveled to the Philippines back in 2017, I remember just kind of having that conversation with her. It's like, they don't know what hospice is.
Yeah, like
it's culturally appropriate that the eldest takes care of the parents when they reach that age.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I also feel like maybe there's a little bit of, in our culture, of trying to separate ourselves from death.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they need to go somewhere sterile to die. They need to be.
They'd be better.
Yeah. Whereas like
ourselves.
A lot of other countries, it's like, no, grandma died in the house. Like she was born in the house. She died in the house.
To dust and dust.
Okay, so tiny house. Why? So
yeah, it's like, where's that connection, right?
Yeah.
I don't blame you. So it's coming from.
Are you and all your friends just driving out to a big parking lot and parking your little cabins? And
it's so funny you mentioned that. There was this is probably a year ago now, where Davis and I created a PowerPoint slide. So we have like a marriage group that we meet with monthly. So it's us and it's me and Kimmy and then 4 other couples, so 10 of us total.
So you created a PowerPoint. This was 1995 when you did this?
Yeah. I know. And Prezi was, I didn't know how to use Prezi.
I'm just kidding.
I probably used PowerPoint in 1995 too.
Yeah, you probably did.
And so we created this PowerPoint slide about this piece of land in Flower Mound that we were going to purchase, and all the little tracks that we would create. And this, like, here's the Nowitzki's home, here's the Railings home, here's the Wyble's house, here's the chapel where Father Martin will live when he retires. Here, and it's like real stuff. Here's the shed.
It's very Benedict option kind of stuff. Yeah,
I actually have that book. I haven't read it yet.
I haven't either. I just know about it.
That's it, pretty much.
I don't have to read it. Just scroll through Facebook and listen to people's opinions about it, right?
Yeah, that's how I read all my books.
That's how I read all my books too.
There you go. So we did this of like, I'm so enamored.
That's not true. I'm very educated and I read a lot.
I'm so enamored with the idea of what that style of community looks like.
But that's the thing. When you start experiencing that type of community, you do start going, buy a house in my neighborhood, please. Like, come on. Like, wouldn't this be great? Like, wouldn't this be, and there is something about that. And I think, anyways, that, there was, I don't know if we could even find this online, but there was someone that, my old coworker Sam Ford worked on this, but there also was an architecture company proposed a restructuring of a church's plan. It was kind of like, do you know what I'm talking about? So the idea was to restructure the church property to be more like what would you call it? Like a town square kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have all this property, and what you do is you build what's the one in South Lake? It's called just the town square. So you have shops.
Nice.
You have shops, but you also have above them apartments.
Yeah.
So you're making money. You could lease out some of the shops. You could use some of them for ministry stuff.
Right.
You also have tenants, right? And granted, what church wants to like now be the landlord? But you could let another company do that and split a percentage maybe.
Oh, sure.
But you also like the way they mapped it out. It was like these like it's all walking stuff. It's all like you're walking around. There's places to gather. There's like the community centers kind of idea. Like there's an outdoor theater. There's all of these things. And the idea is like bring people to this experience of beauty, this experience of community, have these events and stuff so that people, there's still, and then there's the church right in the center. And so you could have, I mean, you could have all your really passionate, faithful Christian friends like living in community there, but also doing mission together, praying together, and it be this hub in a community, you know?
Absolutely. So we were kind of looking at that and thinking like, one, we wanted it for ourselves, and we still do. It'll probably exist in some other form. We just don't know yet.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of it. And we also thought like, well, heck, I mean, if tiny houses, which was an interest of Davis's that I was just like, I can get on board with, if tiny houses are a way that we can kind of provide a opportunity for simplified living, for, you know, a more affordable option of living, not like the cheapest things in the world, but, you know, if you're going to buy a house in Grapevine, you're going to spend a minimum of what, like $250,000.
Yeah,
it is what it is. And then opportunities to, you know, move and locate into places that felt more like home. It was, you know, it was taking I just got an advertisement on Facebook for like this 1,000-acre master plan development west of Fort Worth. And they had like probably 6 pools and a maker space and like a full-fledged gym and like a yoga studio, all for these residents. I was like, okay, that's really cool. And I think they even had like a shared organic garden. It's like, that's really cool.
Wow.
And I'm sure those 10 houses that live right next to it will use it, and the other 1,400 houses won't.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like we're building cities with this marginal attention to detail on what it's like to really commune.
Yeah.
And I just kind of felt like, I bet we can figure out a better way to do that. Not that we're going to figure out that ourselves, but I bet we can contribute to that in a positive way through these houses and through the development of land as well. It's something we're interested in.
Yeah.
It's kind of creating those spaces, not just the house itself, but the space where you can park that house.
Yeah. Monastic life.
Yeah.
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 How do you discern the ideas you have? Like when you're coming up with these ideas, are you the type of person that you just as quickly as possible start testing it and putting it out there, or
No.
do you have to really plan it all out ahead of time?
My nature is to plan out as much as physically possible.
Okay.
So I kind of look at things in almost a pessimistic light, and I'm working on it. Which is like, if I see the goal and I see the outcome, I see the 100 things that'll get in my way first, and then I'll create a plan of action to tackle those 100 things.
Yeah.
Now, Davis, you know, God bless him as he balances me out, and he's just like, I've already jumped over these 100 things. We'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And so we were able to help each other, and I think that's a big he's a big attribute to that.
Yeah.
And being able to get us from point A to point B without too much pressure. Now, the way we discerned a lot of our ideas was like, let's make a list, and we have this like Excel sheet somewhere, or Google sheet, excuse me. So I want you to think that I use
PowerPoint.
Google sheet.
Yeah.
So we have this Google sheet where it has like all of the business ideas that we're interested in.
Yeah.
And this is including our wives, which we started to incorporate more.
Wives are a really
year.
good business idea.
Yeah. I think we should all
Is that
get
what you
into
meant?
wives.
That includes your wife in the business, like the business idea. No, wives are horrible business ideas. Are you offended by that? No, I'm joking. No, my wife is very profitable. What does that even mean? See, this is what I love doing.
I guess when I hear that, I think fertile. That's what it sounds like.
That's true.
Congratulations.
That's true.
It's
She's very
fantastic.
productive.
Well, he has like 18 kids, so it's probably
that's true.
true.
So yeah, we include our wives in these kind of discussions, and we have like a list of, I think it's like 30 or 35 business ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything ranging from opening a distillery to writing Catholic children's novels.
Oh wow.
Like,
So how?
I don't
But
know.
you're setting all your own hours. How do you make sure that you're balancing all? I mean, are you considering this
What is
stuff?
balance?
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it doesn't exist. But I am nervous as well about that, like how balancing all these different things going on, and like how do you, are you setting aside time? Like, do you say, okay, every Thursday, Davis and I get to kind of really dream and plan of other business that's not the day to day nail and key?
So there's a great book. It's Patrick Lencioni's The Advantage.
Yeah,
and
read it.
He talks about that, which is like, here's my research showing why you need to have this type of meeting once a day. Your daily check-in, you need to have this type of meeting once a week. You need to have this one once a month and this one once a quarter. And he goes into detail. And we did that for all of 2 months, and then and then Davis couldn't set the alarm. So that, this is one of those things where everybody's different. That's something I can do and I can stick to for a good while. That's not in his skill set, and it didn't fit his needs, and it stressed him out more than it was necessary.
Yeah.
So I think for everybody it's a little bit different, but you can always try those things. If it doesn't vibe with you, then okay. I don't think we're all the same, but I think there's a definite benefit to time blocking.
Yeah.
And I think there's a different benefit to setting reasonable expectations on what you should and shouldn't commit to.
Yeah.
And for us, we just decided like we're going to commit to the tiny home venture, one, because it's exciting, and you and I are alike, and I just have to be motivated by it. And writing children's books today is not the most exciting thing to me.
Yeah.
Maybe later.
Yeah.
So I want to build a tiny house because that sounds really cool. And I think of it this way. I think it's something that people should consider, but I'm not saying it's something people should always think about. Is like, I need something that's going to make money. I'm not doing this at a point in my life where I think like, if this doesn't work or if this costs me money, whatever.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy. I need to create a successful business model so that I can do the other 34 things on my list.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to stop here.
Do you ever struggle where Davis is like, hey, let's just keep growing nail and key, and you're like, no, man, this month I want to work on tiny houses?
Oh, it's a good question.
Like, how do you balance that?
So right now we have a model that's basically set up where we operate as business owners in a small way, but mostly as individual agents.
Okay.
Davis has his book of business, and he'll do as many deals as he sees fit based on his expenses.
Yeah.
Or whatever his goals are. And I have my own book of business where I'll do my deals based on the same thing.
Yeah.
So we've gotten to a great rhythm with that over the past few years of just like, you do your thing, I'll do mine. And then we'll help each other whenever needed.
Yeah.
The harder thing becomes on the newer businesses that we're both equally committed to, but have great disparities in timeliness.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm married with no kids, and so my evenings, like I get to be away from home right now, and Kimmy is not drowning, and child.
Yeah, my wife's being drowned by our kids.
Exactly.
No, they're all asleep probably.
Which is good. Yeah. Davis doesn't have luxury, the wrong word for it, but he doesn't have that abundance of time.
Yeah.
And so we just have to be super communicative with each other.
Yeah.
And be honest about like, I need this from you. You need to tell me if you can't give it to me.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Man, that's super healthy. That sounds like a healthy marriage.
Yeah. We are very healthy, happily and healthily married.
Kyle, let's go to our segment here. Austin, we thought it would be great, since you're such a great real estate agent.
Sweet.
What we want you to do here, and we're going to show you a few pictures, but what we want you to do is sell us on this property, right?
Yeah.
And you can make guesses about the rest of the building, but I want you to talk to me like, you're really as a real estate agent, you're like, look at the benefits of this space.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've heard of hydroponics gardening, right?
No, I haven't. Tell me more.
One of the most efficient uses of water and vegetable growing on the planet.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually quite incredible. So this is a $30,000 upgrade that the sellers put in.
Okay. And we're looking here, for those listening, this is a picture of what looks like a pool, Austin, that's been filled with overgrown.
Yeah. Somebody with your eye might call it a pool, I guess.
So fill me in on the rest of this. So this was a $30,000 upgrade to the house.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a hydroponic system.
Okay.
It's used to grow. That's high grade algae. So you can actually sell that for like $17 an ounce.
So this is a profitable. Right, so this is like a profitable.
Yeah.
$17 an ounce for algae.
Yeah, it's crazy. Wow. And microgreens, those are going out the roof right now.
The algae market's really going up.
Right.
It's all these fit girls on Instagram.
Yeah.
that want to drink.
It's really high on omega-3s. It's you actually process it better than you would fish oil. It's pretty
Man,
incredible.
this is really cool. Okay, so a house like this that has one of these additions on the back, give us like your best guess at what's the market value of this home?
I mean, just judging from where we are, the skyline's telling me Toronto, so I'm
Exactly.
thinking probably like 1.4.
Okay, cool. So cheap. 1.4
Yeah.
million. All right, cool. Here's the next. And these are actual real estate photos.
Yeah, this is what we would call a modern homestead.
Okay.
So we're modern homesteading here. Obviously, you've got your concrete stucco interior, so it's very earth friendly. It's like an earthship type home where it's, you've got a lot of passive solar activity going on through your windows here. So you're catching. You basically have an it's not exactly north-south facing because you want the proper wind distribution, and that explains why this pig here is.
Wait! I just noticed. Is that a pile of money next to the pig?
I think it's that comes with the house.
For those who are listening, you got to go to YouTube or go to my Instagram because we're definitely going to clip this out. But there is like a concrete floor and a pig resting his head on the couch.
Right. We got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some pros to this house. I mean, like
this lifestyle.
Yeah, So
we're selling the lifestyle.
Yeah, this is not just a real estate investment. This is a lifestyle investment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what would you ballpark this property? This is the only thing you're exposed to, obviously. So you're doing the best you can. But
right. So obviously it's a little TLC, but it's a handyman special. So I'd say you're easily looking at multiple offers around $250,000.
All right, solid. Let's move on to the next. So this is the picture of a kitchen. Some of the cabinet doors are open and removed. I guess
some open, some removed.
The person that was taking the photo wanted you to see inside the cabinets.
Right. Well, ample storage in that kitchen.
There's some really nice yellow wood paneling on the side here. Oh, we see it, Brittany. Brittany's pointing. And then
we'll get there.
Brittany has pointed to a art installment here. It looks like maybe going into the kitchen. There's just some letters. Who knows what? But probably inspirational quote of some sort, right? Millennials love inspirational quotes.
Yeah. So very interesting. I mean, obviously a little outdated, but nice upgrade to the ceiling fan and the recessed can lighting. It's good to see open concept in the kitchen. It's very in right now.
Yeah.
So really, we're talking about changing out the cabinet faces, painting them white, adding in some quartz countertops.
Could we get some extra lights on the art installment, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. Perhaps some plumbing problems. It looks like we had some backflow off the half bath toilet onto the wall there.
It looks like there was a lot of backflow going on in this building. It also looks like maybe someone was trying to really get the spirit of Kurt Cobain's life. Like, I just want to live like Kurt Cobain, like when he was really in his grunge year, like he was really doing rough. Had a rough. Okay, so a house like this with the extra art installment,
right?
What would you price this at?
Well, it's gonna be different in every city. And in Austin,
now what city?
Because with this,
with your so with your expert eye, you can tell exactly where in the world this is.
Right.
So where is this in the world?
I'm gonna say this is in Austin.
Okay,
Texas.
and then what's the market value of this home just based off of this photo?
We're looking at probably $435,000 with an extra $15,000 for the art installment.
Okay, cool. You heard it here first. All right, let's go on to one more. Holy, a rare chance to own the opening scene from 12 different horror movies. So
12 different.
So this, I mean, look, this is just this is honest, right? Like, look, this is a room that's really needs some drywall, right? Like, it just needs some drywall. This one isn't actually that bad.
Kind of a nice bike.
Yeah, it's a very nice bike. I bet it comes with the place.
I bet it would too. So we got some concrete floors here. Obviously, it's looks like it's been in the process of being refinished.
Yeah.
So depending on you got like some settlement cracks in the upper right hand corner there. So maybe some foundation damage.
Yeah.
And I recommend you get an engineer out there, see what they're thinking. But
yeah.
Possibly a foreclosure.
Okay.
You know, maybe pick it up at the county courthouse for around $80,000.
Okay. Do you ever have clients worried about hauntings or houses being built on burial graves?
So this is like a recent story.
Okay.
So this just happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
To you?
No.
Oh, what? Tell me the story.
But a friend.
What's the story?
But a friend. Okay, so my home inspector, his name's Al. Shout out Al. Send this to him. He and his wife, these are some of Davis's clients, but he's been our home inspector for 2 years now. Super nice guy. He and his wife are thinking about moving closer to town. They live, who the hell knows where, like up near Decatur or something, some other foreign country. And they're thinking of like moving to Arlington. So he found this house while driving through a neighborhood that was on the market. And it just like gorgeous house, like huge, big lot. And he got up there and he talked to the agent. He's like, yeah, the house is for sale. It's like $250,000. It's like a $250,000 house that should be double that. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So they're checking it out and walking through, and he and his wife split up. They're going through different sides of the house while the agent's taking measurements in the front of the house. And Al walks to the back bedroom and he's checking it out, and he looks through the kitchen. And out in the backyard, he sees this guy walking through the backyard. And he just kind of noticed like a tall, slender man, not Slender Man.
A Slender Man.
Yeah, so I'm not taking it back to that. But the only thing that he noticed about him that was strange is that he had silvery skin. Like he just like felt like he was shimmering.
Like an alien.
Maybe. So his wife, I'm thinking his wife's name is Annie, so I hope I don't get that wrong.
Al and Annie. Annie and Al.
I know it's like almost like a TV show.
Yeah.
How close their names are. So Annie's in the master bedroom, and she walks in there, pokes her head around, and she sees a tall man with what she would describe as silvery skin.
She saw it separate.
Separate.
Okay.
Just looking around, and she like in the house, and so she smiled and like, said hello, and he didn't really say anything, just acknowledged her and
in the house.
In the house. So they finish their group tour, and they come back out to the front of the house, and they're looking at it, and they're like, man, the house looks awesome. Like I have no idea why it's so cheap, but it looks amazing. And so they're like, yeah, I mean, it was really cool. I thought it was so weird though. It's like there was another guy in the house. He's like, yes, I saw him too. He was in the backyard when I was in the kitchen. It's like, no, he was in the bedroom when I was there because I saw him. It's like
they described the same guy too.
He's like, and he had silver skin, right? Looked about 60 years old. Like, oh my gosh. Yes. And so they're both like, what the heck? That's crazy. And so they call Davis. Davis calls the agent who's now no longer at the house. He had left. And the agent, he gets on the phone with them. He's like, hey man, like just had some clients walk through your house. Like they love it. I think it's awesome. Can you kind of tell me why it's been on the market so long and like a little bit more about the price? Also like weird thing, like I don't want to be weird about this, but my clients like saw something funny. And the agent's response is, what did they see? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, you've heard some stuff.
Yeah.
And he tells them about Silverman, which is how they're describing it. He's like, oh, I haven't heard about Silverman yet. It's like, what have you heard? And it's like George Davis telling this story, but he's like, oh my gosh, well, what else can you tell me? He's like, well, how much time you got? He's like, 30 minutes ago. And so he just starts going through all these different things that other people have been reporting back during these showings.
Other different types of people?
Other different occurrences, I guess. Encounters.
What? What do you think is going on?
So the funny thing is,
then what happens?
You know, Davis doesn't.
They buy the house, obviously.
No, we'll get there.
Buy the house. So buy it.
I thought about it.
And then make it like
and then get a priest out there.
We'll
and
just make it an event space. Come on out. Let's see what you experience out here.
And then we also hold it open for the local community art classes.
I mean, how much would you pay? Would you pay money if someone said, now, Austin, this story turns where you say, Austin,
okay,
$20, you can go spend an hour in this building.
Gosh, maybe after I went to confession.
We have we have it outfitted with cameras. It's like escape room. Yeah. We have an interesting escape room concept. All right, we have this house.
You really need to get out.
If you think escape rooms are legit, this is for people.
Escape rooms are really hurting right now.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe that fad is over.
Yeah,
with COVID.
But like, imagine like this is for people that are hardcore into escape rooms. Like this is hard. Like this is like, all right, you pay us $20, you bring a couple of your friends, and you're just gonna walk through this house.
Yeah.
And then you tell them some of the stories, and then you just say you can go into the house.
I like it. I think the house might still be on the market.
Would you go?
Right after I went to confession.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
I would go.
Dang.
So he's talking to the agent, and the agent's like, well, I don't know if you noticed this. It sounds like your clients didn't look at the documents that were available on the website. but there's actually a paranormal activity report on this house, which is a hilarious thing that exists. First
That's
of all,
like a real estate thing?
apparently,
Like,
I
you
just
can
learned
just-
about it after
Wow.
my 3 years. So
Dang.
somebody went out there and did this, 15-page paranormal activity report
Yeah.
and presented their findings of suspicious and paranormal activity within this residence. And so this house is owned by the bank. It's foreclosure. And this guy just sells a bunch of foreclosure homes.
Wow.
So he's had it on the market for, 120 days at this point
Yeah,
when
wow.
Al and Annie are walking through.
Yeah.
But the day or second day it went on the market, he had it under contract. So when you do houses like this, you have to put money down and things like that. But sometimes when the price is so low, they do non-refundable deposits.
Interesting.
So for this particular house, you had to throw $10,000 down immediately just to be able to say, like, it's yours.
Yeah.
And so back on day 2 of the market, when all of this stuff was still like an unknown, there was no paranormal activity report, there was nothing. It was just like, hey, we got a cheap house, whoever wants it. Some handyman came along and put it under him. And so this guy throws down $10,000. 2 days later, he shows up to the house to do his own kind of inspections and stuff and just check everything out. And he's planning on buying the house. And he brings his 2 sons. And so he's going through the house and doing his thing. And the kids had brought this little card and dice game, and they were playing it at one end of the hallway, and he's at the other end of the hallway in the kitchen, and kind of separating. It's like living room, a weird layout, but like living room, kitchen, and then there's like a long row of doors leading to bedrooms.
I'm going to get ready for the story. I have a...
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, go for it. And so he's doing his thing, checking things out, and the kids are playing that dice game, and it's like he's hearing like a lot of noise, and it's kind of bothering him. It's like he can hear the dice like being picked up and dropped and being picked up and dropped and picked up and dropped. He's like, boys, cut it out. Like, I'm trying to work. Pick up and drop, pick up and drop. He's like, boys, enough. Heard another time, and he took a step out into the hallway, looks down to where the boys were, and he just sees the dice and cards levitating. Just floating in the air. I know. He takes another step forward, and they just slam against the wall and drop.
Holy...
And he's like, what the heck? And so now he's like, boys, where are you? They're upstairs. Now, the funny thing about this upstairs situation is back when the seller's agent like first got the house, he had to send in crews to clean out debris and stuff like that, get it like somewhat presentable.
Yeah.
But they noticed that one thing was weird, is that there's this long staircase that leads to the upstairs bedroom. There's only one, and it was completely barricaded. So like almost every piece of furniture in the house was wedged in between these 2 walls, leading all the way up to that door.
No, that's not what you want to see.
So I mean, and something was being kept in or kept out, right?
Ah, no,
So the boys are up there.
no.
So he runs and he grabs his boys, yells at them to come down, and he gets them, runs out of the house, throws them in the truck. It's like, do not move. I'm going to get my stuff. I'll be right back.
No, you never do that. Haven't you seen any scary movies? You never do. I'll be right back. You
So-
never do. I'll be right back.
Exactly. You can't
You
say that.
never do. I'll be
You
right
can't
back.
say that.
Back in.
No, you don't go back in, especially by
Exactly.
yourself. That's when it happens, when you're by yourself.
Exactly. So he goes back in to get his, hundreds of dollars of equipment. Forget that. And as he's walking, the way it's described to me, he's walking. I would be freaking out and sprinting.
You've been doing that light, you know when you're walking and you're like kind of, you're kind of like that's the walking I would be doing.
So he's coming through that hallway of 4 doors.
Yeah.
And every time he passes by one, it slams.
No.
Slams.
No.
Slams. He gets to the kitchen, and the kitchen door slams in his face. He has to wedge it open and pry his way in, grab his tools. By this time, all the kitchen cabinets, all the doors in the house are just open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close.
Oh!
He's running out of the house, calls the agent up, tells him, I'm done. Keep the $10,000. I don't want the house.
And the agent's like,
what the heck? And so the agent and Davis are kind of just having a dialogue now.
Yeah.
He's like, look, man, like I know I just told you that story, but I want you to know, like, I'm a normal dude.
Yeah.
This is a funny sentence.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
what does that mean?
Yeah.
But I'm a normal dude. Like, I'm married. I have kids. Like, I don't believe in ghosts. Like, none of this stuff seemed real to me until
Dang.
I took my wife to the house. This is the agent talking.
So his next step was to take his wife to the house?
Yeah. He's like, this is dumb.
Did he tell his wife ahead of time?
I don't know.
Probably not. Like, hey, honey, we're just going to go check on this property. No big
I
deal.
want to make sure things are
This
fine.
crazy dude was trying to get rid of 10 grand, apparently.
There's probably like a rat in the kitchen or something. Bring the spray.
Yeah.
So they go into the house, and he's like, I mean, nothing going on. Like,
Yeah.
no dice or cards floating in the air. There's no doors slamming shut.
Yeah.
But he gets in there and they're looking around his wife like within like a few minutes. It's like, hey, like honey, I feel like kind of hot. I guess it's like, do you feel hot? He's like, no, I feel fine. Like, you know, they keep going. Like 30 seconds later, it's like I feel like my neck is burning. It's like, okay, like, do you want to leave? And he's like, oh my gosh, like I literally feel like my neck is on fire. And he's like, okay, well, let me just look at it. He like pulls back her hair, and she's got like this imprint of a hand like digging into her neck. And he's like, okay, we're done.
Oh my gosh!
I know.
Holy! Oh my gosh!
So this whole thing is wild, right? And like every time we see Al at different times when I have a client who needs his services. So I saw him and he's telling me the stories. And then I'd run into Johnny, and Johnny had just run into Al. It's crazy because
Al doesn't really have, like, what's Al's motivation for telling that story? Because, like, he's trying to sell the home.
Well, Al's our friend, but the agent. The agent's like, I know. He's just telling the story just because, like, well, hell, you're going to find out one way or another. I just don't want you to die in this house.
Gosh.
Exactly.
That
what we talked
is
about.
wild.
So I think that house is still on the market.
You think it's still on the market?
So after research, I think it was Johnny who dug it up because all of us are invested in the story now. A person did die in that house. So it was apparently it was like an older couple, and then the son of the family moved back into the house. The parents passed. The son was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and then we think he is the one who passed in the house. And now it's like,
dang,
whoa,
Silverman.
Yeah.
It's definitely the creepiest story we've had on the show ever, right?
Happy to oblige.
That was awful.
That was awful. That was awful, and that was awful in such a good way.
It was like the priest come in and saved the day. I kept waiting for like the happy ending.
There is no happy ending. The story. The moral of the story. The moral of the story here is
continue the address.
No, the moral of the story here is take that, materialists. Right? There's stuff out there. There's immaterial things, right? And they're climbing in your windows.
That is my favorite
Smashing no
argument
people up.
Yeah.
For the Catholic Church versus like Protestant churches. Like if you're in that situation, it doesn't matter what faith you are. Like there's like a door slam, you know you're going to the Catholic Church.
Yeah, who are you gonna call?
Also, yeah, you notice no.
The guy with the acoustic guitar, the guy with the crucifix chain.
You're a good father. The doors are slamming. To you are.
Whoever knows the most Latin. That's what I'm talking to.
100%.
Dang.
That was awful.
That was great, though.
Yeah.
Can we do one more photo? Can we scroll down? Austin was so good at this. Can we
Happy to oblige.
Attention to details.
There's another body. No scared.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is great. This is great. Okay. Can you get rid of the little? Why does it have text there? Okay, there you go. So we're looking at Austin. If you could describe this for our listeners, maybe.
Yeah. So we're looking at a staircase. First of all, so you know how staircases have certain landings. So this one has a landing. So you're coming up to the first 1.5 floors.
Yeah.
And then you ever, I mean, I don't know about you, but like. You ever like watch those Saturday morning cartoons and you're like, oh my gosh, commercial. But you have to run upstairs to use your bathroom because your parents are like, don't you dare use my bathroom. But you can't make it all the way. So you want to stop at the 1.5 floor landing to use the perfectly positioned toilet there with sink.
It happens to me every morning. I'm like, I'm watching cartoons. I have to use I have to go boo-boo and make brown. And as I'm going up the stairs, I'm like, I wish this bathroom wasn't so far away.
Right.
I wish it wasn't so far away.
It's also it's so suitable for the elderly too. What we could do with this house is really simply we could just install one of those granny lifts coming up the stairs. And you know, Grandma, I'm so sorry, Grandma, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Because that's a slow lift. So we're going to drop you off right here.
So there's like a little pause. Well, maybe there's a little pause that just hovers her above it.
Right.
So she comes up the stairs. She has one button to ascend, one button to descend, but then also a pause button. So as she's floating over the toilet that's on the landing, she can press pause, drop a how now brown cow, and then continue to ascend up to the sink here, wash her hands of all the excrement, and then just continue up the stairwell. Also, perfectly, it's like wood floor there. So if she happens to pause, not directly over the toilet,
right, you can have wood damage.
but it's easier to clean up, I think, than just like than just dropping.
That's better than the carpet.
Yeah, you don't want to drop your mud pie on the carpet.
Right.
You know, you want it to be at least on some wood or laminate.
Right. And you can also tend to your plants while you tend to yourself.
Yeah. So do you put a bathroom in the second story if you have this in the stairway?
Well, I mean, for $15,000 more, you could, but who has that kind of luxury?
Well, I mean, when you have this kind of luxury, who needs that
Right.
kind of luxury? You know?
Exactly.
This is great. So how are you pricing this house? Like, where is this in the world? Just based on the window here, you could probably tell that
I think it's very clearly a Portland house.
Okay, obviously. Okay.
So I'm thinking we're looking at a 2-story townhome, 2-story condo. Obviously, there's some different kind of rerouting of plumbings, but hey, I mean, this house works perfectly. I think it's probably around $330,000.
Yeah. Stairs work perfectly too.
Yeah.
That's a deal. Man, this has been great. Guys, you can go to just search the show with Edmund Mitchell on YouTube or podcast apps or Facebook. We have awesome announcements. What, Kyle? What? You're smiling about something. What?
I'm not smiling. I'm scared about the ghosts. I'm emotionally affected. I hate ghost stuff.
You guys want to go check out that house?
No.
No.
I want to be so far away from that
I wanna be
house.
far away from that house. Awesome. It's great having you on. Is there anything else you want to plug? Where can people go to find the 3 and other things that you're doing?
Yeah. So if you ever need any real estate assistance here locally in the DFW or anywhere inside of Texas, just give me a call, nailandkey.com, Nail and Key Real Estate Group. If you would like to serve the homeless community in a more meaningful way, then stay tuned for what Feast Day will be doing in hopefully the near future based on COVID restrictions and volunteer involvement. And then if you need any assistance with tiny house living, just want to talk about tiny houses or want to come see one in person, give me a call, or you can reach out to me through nailandkey.com as well, or find me on Facebook or Instagram, Austin Wyble.
Awesome. Thanks, man. This has been a good one. I think the outro clip is just going to have to be the X-Files theme song. Even though we
any
might...
more sponsors?
Any more sponsors? Do we have any more sponsors?
Did we talk about Patreon?
We did talk about Patreon.
Cool.
I want to give a shout out, man, at the end. We're at one of the other episodes, we're gonna have to do a Patreon shout out at the top. But I want to give shout out to new patrons. Liv Harrison. We're gonna do some fun stuff, some content type collaborations with Liv Harrison. And then we had a few other new patrons. Anyways, we'll do an episode and we'll clip out, like, just giving them all a shout out. We'll put their names in the descriptions. If you want your name in the description, just contribute on Patreon. That's it, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Austin, thanks for being here. This was really great. And
Thanks
we're just going to go out with